Hey you guys, Rachel Barrentine here. I'm excited to study this passage with you, Luke 1, and this is the first part of a 4-part series called Focus, and it's just to kind of get our minds wrapped around the Christ of Christmas. So many things steal our thoughts and our energy and time during the season, and so I wanted to, for myself, just get focused, and I thought maybe some of you would like to come along. I want to just throw out this principle that I noticed in this passage, and it's this. While you're waiting, God is working. While you're waiting, God is working. My husband and I just went to an orchestra. It was synced up with a movie, but it was a live orchestra, and they were playing the movie Home Alone, so there was a big screen, and Home Alone was playing, but underneath it was this orchestra that was actually doing the live soundtrack behind the movie. Very cool. I'd never experienced anything like that before. But what I was noticing is that everything was timed and synced perfectly. The conductor knew exactly at what second, at what screen, at what, everything was down to a detail. And I just kind of imagined for a moment, like, what would happen if everybody played the part they were supposed to play, but took no thought as to what time they were supposed to play it. So like if they just decided to play their little solo oboe part in the middle of nowhere, like what that would sound like. And we all know that pretty much that would be a complete and utter disaster. And yet, this is kind of what we do with our lives. God is this master conductor, this master orchestrator. He has perfect parts that are designed to make something beautiful and grand and awesome out of our lives and out of humanity, and yet we choose to do our own thing. We don't trust Him, and we don't wait for His timing. We don't rest when we're supposed to rest, and we don't play when we're supposed to play, and all because of this factor that we don't like to wait, or we feel like He's withholding and holding out on us. So this is the principle. While you're waiting, God is working. And we're going to take a look at this. I know there's a million things we could get out of this passage, but this is the one that jumped out for me this week as I was studying it and looking at it. So let's take a look at Luke and see what I'm talking about here. Luke saying this. Having investigated everything carefully from the beginning to write it out for you in consecutive order. This is kind of cool because Luke is essentially saying there's a lot of different accounts, but none of them are really consecutive. So I want to give it to you in the order, the chronological order that it took place. And he's writing to Theophilus, and it's so that you might know the exact truth about the things that you have been taught. And isn't that what we're chasing today? We're chasing this relationship with God. We want to know the truth. Verse 5 says, In the days of Herod, king of Judea, there was a certain priest named Zacharias of the division of Abijah, and he had a wife from the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. This is very key right here, verse 6. And they were both righteous in the sight of God, walking blamelessly in all the commandments and requirements of the Lord. This is key because Elizabeth and Zacharias were barren, but it wasn't because they were unrighteous. It wasn't because they were not following God. It says right here that they were both righteous and they were both walking blamelessly. So here's another key point to that. While you're waiting, even the righteous have to wait. Even the righteous have to wait. An angel of the Lord appeared to Zacharias, standing to the right of the altar of incense. And Zacharias was troubled when he saw him, and fear gripped him. He's like a normal guy reacting normally. If an angel popped into your room today, you'd probably freak out and have a little bit of fear. Okay, that's normal. But the angel said to him, Do not be afraid. Okay, so fear must have been on his face somehow. Zacharias, for your petition has been heard. I love that. God is hearing our prayers. And your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you will give him the name John. And you will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth. For he will be great in the sight of the Lord, and he will drink no wine or liquor. And he will be filled with the Holy Spirit while yet in his mother's womb. That's very cool. And he will turn back many of the sons of Israel to the Lord their God. And it is he who will go as a forerunner before him in the Spirit, before God in the Spirit, and in the power of Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers back to the children, and the disobedient to the attitude of the righteous, so as to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. It's interesting to note that there's an attitude of righteousness, not just the action, not just the outward appearance of righteousness, but there's an inward reality, an inward attitude that we carry with us that's either righteous or unrighteous. In verse 18, Zacharias said to the angel, "How shall I know this for certain?" I love it. He's practical, and he's just not really buying all this. "For I am an old man, and my wife is advanced in years." And the angel answered and said to him, "I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to bring you this good news. And behold, you shall be silent and unable to speak until the day when these things take place, because you did not believe my words, which shall be fulfilled in their proper time." And the people were waiting for Zacharias and were wondering at his delay in the temple. He comes out of the temple. He can't speak. God has hit the mute button. If you think that you own the remote control, guess what? God actually does. Here's the reality, the big picture reality. John the Baptist was prophesied and ordained and called and anointed to be the forerunner of Jesus. Elizabeth and Zacharias could not have born John any sooner for that to happen. Their delay, their disappointment, was God's divine appointment. And the proper time for us often feels late. It feels like we have to wait too long. It feels like God is like dropped the ball. But the reality is this: God is setting it up. He is orchestrating it. Things for our ultimate good, for His good pleasure, for His will to be done. And if we want to be a part of what He's doing, we can't be pushing past the waiting period. And so all of that requires timing, requires divine orchestrating. And so, in fact, the barrenness that she was experiencing, that lifelessness, that longing, those desires, all of that was wrapped up in the birth of John, but it had to be strategically placed and strategically timed for God to use it and to put John into this world at the right time to be the forerunner for Jesus. Isn't that cool? So while we are waiting, while we were trying to figure out what God is up to or what He's doing, you can trust this one thing, that while you are waiting, God is working. So I encourage you to step back, to trust the master conductor, trust the master orchestrator, that He's got good things in store for you and good things to do in you and through you if you'll trust His timing. While you're waiting, God is working. I'll see you next week.